Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Eternal Fire, the new Turkish super team. There's a lot of names in here that people may recognize, and some that perhaps you've forgotten about a little bit, and then there is also a name that's fresh if you don't watch that tier 2 scene as much. I'm actually really curious to see how this team does, given the fact that there's a lot of players coming back together after being in different projects from one another. So I'm interested to see whether they can reconnect quickly, first of all, and also if they can find the same success that they've had in the past. Then, of course, there's the fact that this Turkish super team title is kind of just being thrown around to generate some hype, I think. Whether they can actually live up to that remains to be seen, right? We're trying to harken back to the Space Soldiers days. I think it's going to be difficult to replicate that kind of success. Either way, without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we have Xantares. He's 26 years old, and he will be the team's IGL. Most of you will know him from Big, but he also played on Space Soldiers back in the day, which was also a majority Turkish team. He is by far the biggest, the best, and the most experienced name on this team. Of course, that top spot that Big were able to find was relatively limited, and they couldn't return to that form, in fact, even getting knocked out of Pro League. So, Xantares, I suppose, looking for a fresh start with this here Turkish super team. But I'm curious to see how things will go from the IGL position. Naturally, that means he's going to be neutered a little bit in terms of the skill, in terms of how aggressive he can play, and therefore it might hinder the entire team. But they have pretty quickly cemented themselves as the best team in Turkey, taking down Sangal in 2 series. To be perfectly honest, Xantares looks pretty fucking unstoppable. Next up is Woxic. He's 22 years old, and he will be the team's AWPer. He's previously played for Cloud9, Mousesports, and Hellraisers, and I think on all of those teams he was the best player, at least when he was on form. However, it does seem that with his exits from a couple of these teams, he can be difficult to work with. And of course, there was a drop in said form, especially on Mousesports. He looks pretty decent at the moment in their recent games. I think Woxic's always been one of these AWPers that can just turn the dial up to 11 and pull off a 1v4 out of nowhere. I think he'll wipe the floor with most of the AWPers in the mid-level of Counter-Strike, but the big question is whether he can pull it back against the best in the world. Third, we have Woxic's brother-in-arms, ISSAA. 24 years old, he's going to be a rifler, and he has previously played for OG and Hellraisers. That is indeed the same Hellraisers lineup that Woxic played on, and the two of them together were incredibly dangerous, and it was a bit of a shame to see them break apart in 2019. Going through these as well, I've also noticed how young a lot of these guys still are, despite being around in the scene for quite some time. This is always going to be Mr. Consistent, though. That's what he's all about, towards the middle or maybe even sometimes the top of the leaderboard. And he has some maps that he looks really comfortable on, like Dust 2 and Inferno. Now we have the new kid on the block, ImoRR. 21 years of age, he will also be a rifler, and he's previously played for Sangal. He was never the flashiest player at Sangal, but once again, always pretty consistent, and I think willing to play the more difficult positions. Every team needs someone like that, and I think this opportunity to play with some of the greats from his region really can't be missed. However, saying that, he's pretty great in a clutch, and he seems to be a pretty good all-rounder. I think the experience at Sangal's actually given him a lot, because they were a very loose team in the way that they like to call. Again, though, he has a lot to prove, because I don't think he's quite ready for the top level of Counter-Strike just yet. And finally, we have Calyx, 23 years of age. He will be another rifler, and he's previously played for Gorillas, Envy, Windigo, and also Space Soldiers. So it's the first time in a couple years that he will be coming back to play with Xantares, and also the first time in about a year that it feels like he's played any proper Counter-Strike. He only played 3 games for Gorillas before leaving, and of course the Envy project was a little weird, let's put it that way. Super hard player to pin down. He can play super aggressive, he sometimes plays the lurker, he's been known to pick up the AWP, and I think Eternal Fire is still trying to find what to do with him. With all this being said, folks, I think they will immediately make waves in that mid-tier Counter-Strike, and they are bursting onto the scene right now, but it's difficult to predict the longevity of this team. I don't think this 5-man lineup can compete at the top level, as I've said a couple of times, and also I think that this is more of a stopgap for some of these players until they get better offers. Still, while they're together, they will provide some very exciting Counter-Strike, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Alright, thank you very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. Do have a lot of plans as well to kind of pick up the content. I need to improve my editing skills, and I'm going to start making some longer form stuff as well. So these types of videos might be on pause. The interviews are going to keep coming fairly regularly. But the more planned content, the more personal content, I'm going to be putting a lot more work into it, and that therefore is going to take a bit more time. Either way, thank you very much for watching. Do be sure, leave the like, leave the comments, you know, let me know what you think. I kind of took it back to the very basic, keep it simple style that I had with the Miles NXT video. Anyway, thanks very much once again, and I'll see you in the next video.